women's bodies are always controlled, and they're the ones that are controlled with reproduction. So the pill, it's the female pill. You know,
we still don't have a male pill.
We still don't have a male pill, and if we did, would we trust them to take it? You know, that's the kind of argument. So let's trust the women to do it because we know the women are reliable, kind of thing. And you know, because of that kind of, because we embody the child as the child grows, then naturally we're the one who then carries it around all the time after it's been born. And so I think it has all kinds of, you know, knock-on effects for just putting women in a particular place.
Yeah, if there's only like a reliable male contraceptive pill, I think, I think men would take the pill because they want to have sex without pregnancy, I think.
I actually think that's terrifying. I think having the pill, even though it's not a great option sometimes, I think it's one of the areas where women feel they have some kind of control over their bodies. So if that wasn't an option for women, I think that's a real kind of scary power shift.
I think about the menopause. I've been reading about that recently, and you know, this natural process that happens to women has been medicalized for decades now. It's been the subject of, you know, much attention from pharmaceutical companies because they can make a lot of money out of hormone replacement. You get things like our ovaries are failing and you know, things are in decline, and actually it's just a normal biological process. It does have some symptoms for some women that are very unpleasant, but this idea that it's unnatural and needs to be controlled is something that's very powerful.
And again, I mean, you know, personally I'm experiencing leading up to the menopause at the moment, so I'm going through this, and you know, it's something that, even though it's kind of like now we can medicalise it, we can, you know, treat it, we can, as you say, treat this natural event. Actually, what would be more helpful is to have wider understanding about the impact of it.
We don't really want to talk about periods. That's why, you know, period adverts or sanitary towel adverts have blue blood, not real blood, and there's this sense that it's this hidden, scary thing. I think still. I was listening to Women's Hour, and they were talking about gushing, and I had never heard that being talked about in a kind of public forum. And there is this idea that women's health is unspeakable and kind of hidden and shameful. Still, there's still aspects, although we're much more open in many ways. There are still particular aspects of women's bodies that we don't talk about, and I think the problem that I have is then that doctors have so much power over us that they have the specialist knowledge about our bodies, and we don't actually even understand our own bodies very well because it's not taught to us very well. And our hormonal cycles are a source of great knowledge if you understand them, but if you don't, they're just something very scary and something that can be held up against you by a man for, well, you're not, you know, you're behaving like that because your hormones are crazy today. You know, your real emotions are very much dismissed. So if you could click your fingers and solve something today for women and women's health, what would it be?
Do you know, I think one of the best solutions to, I mean, it's all to do with the patriarchal society that we live in, isn't it? And I think one of the best solutions would be just to somehow magically give all men periods as well. And then they would experience it, they'd experience the pain, they'd experience the disruption, they'd experience not being able to wear certain clothes or go to certain places, or not being able to leave the house if they're gushing. The world might change quite radically.
Well, I was watching Fleabag recently, and she talks about how women's bodies are sites of pain from, you know, very early on, and I think how we should celebrate the fact that we're kind of free from bleeding every month, and actually free from male sexual attention might not be such a bad thing.
I think if it was men that had periods instead of women, I think for one it would be seen as less of a sign of fertility and more of a sign of power, and it would be used as in competition with other men and a way to compare themselves into as opposed to other women as well.
There will be a leave for the men, like let's say 4-day leave for your period, and that wouldn't be part of your sick leave, but it'd just be leave for that purpose.
I reckon if men had periods, particularly around them being young adolescents, it would be kind of a rite of passage, a bit like the bar mitzvah. It would be like the equivalent of like you becoming a man, and it'd be something that would be, I think, among the youth, something you might be actually quite proud of and you talk about a lot. and it'll be like really celebrated. There'll be parallels between almost the blood coming out of you and like war and really kind of masculine traditional ideas of violence and power from the past. So I think, yeah, if men had periods, we'll be kind of moving towards that kind of way of thinking.
If I could click my fingers and solve something today for women's health, I think it would definitely be mental health in relation to body image and diet culture. I think that there is a lot to be said for that, and I think if that could be improved, I think that would change people's lives.
Just in the media, like less objectifying women as a whole, and yeah, just appreciating who they are beyond how they look.
If I could click my fingers and solve one thing to do with women's health today, I would basically change the access to abortions. I think at the moment you have to speak to 2 doctors. There's big social stigma around it. It should be as easily accessible as, say, the morning after pill.
If I could click my fingers and solve something with women's health, I would make more affordable options for couples that couldn't get pregnant.
I think for me it's still about reproductive control, and being from Northern Ireland, the fact that women in Northern Ireland still do not have the right to access abortion, even for cases extreme that are about fetal abnormalities that mean the child will not survive. You still have to travel to England or Scotland to achieve that. So I think we still have a long way to go, and the control that is exerted over women's bodies is something we need to fight against.
Yes.
Get more from the Open University. Check out the links on screen now.